Yeah, I've got a 1975 6 horsepower Sea King outboard motor that actually belongs to my brother-in-law, and it's not running. Hasn't run in several years. Don't know if it will run. It did crank, but this is not winding back up and working right, so I'm pretty sure that the recoil system is messed up on it. So we're going to take it apart and try to figure out how to get this thing broken down and see what's going on here. We've got the cover off, and what should be happening, I'm pretty sure, is that this mechanism here should be coming up, rising up like that, kind of. You can see that, but it should be doing that because of a spring, I'm pretty sure. So I'm going to try to disassemble this, see if I can get a new pull rope put on it and so forth, and see if we can get it going. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to take this screw out here and see if that won't let us raise some of that up off of there. And that did nothing for us, but if you can see, there's a piece that goes around this, and looks like there's two screws. There's two screws that hold this in, one on this side and one on the other side. So we're going to remove those two screws and see if it will unmount this from that section from the motor. Okay, that did loosen this, but what you have here is you have this neutral. This lever goes forward, reverse, neutral, and it's hooked on down here. So now I'm going to see if I can undo this nut that's holding that on and see if that'll pull free. That did come off of there, and it was a lock nut and two washers, and it's very difficult to see down in here, but basically when that came off, then this came free. Now I'm going to see, still see if I can work this up out of here, and I've kind of got this pulled off already. This fuel line was hooked onto here. So to give myself some room, I'm going to pull this back out of here. I'm going to back this out to give me a little bit more room. Okay, that came out with no problem, and that's just a 9/16 combination wrench that I used to take that out of there. It's getting me a little bit more room. What I found out, and it's very difficult to see down through here, there are two more screws in holding a piece in just like the ones up here, so I'm having to work my way down to there to unhook those, one on each side. I did not have to take this bottom piece out. What I did, if you look back, there was a little eye bolt looking thing here that the hose went through. Pulled it out, and then I was actually able just to jiggle this around and get the right angle and work it up out of there. So now I'm going to look at taking this apart, see how this mechanism works, getting a new rope put on it. Back on my workbench now. This is just coming out. It looks like that's the spring. It doesn't appear to be broken. I know this ain't the full problem, but to me, you can see there's a crack there. That is either the result of the problem or possibly the problem itself. So I gotta still tear into this thing a little bit more and try to figure out how it works and see if we can figure out what's wrong with it. So we'll be back with you later. Okay, so now I'm trying to break this apart a little bit more. If you can see here, there's this pin in here, and you just push it real hard and it will actually come out, and then this plastic piece will come off. Then we'll just see about getting this piece right here off. So we have basically then the metal shaft here that'll have this on it. Appears to be the lowest breakdown apart that I can purchase. And I know if I purchase that, then I'm gonna have to reuse this piece and this piece. So I'm taking that off right now. I'm sure. I gotta figure out how this works. Probably can't show you that. There's two little holes there to the left and the right, and I thought that was like a threaded piece in there, but this piece inside here is actually a little spring, and so there's probably a spring missing out of this side, and I think I saw two little ball bearings in the bottom of that motor housing. So I need to go back over and look and see what may have broken and fallen down somewhere. I just want to point something out here. If you notice here, this part is a solid piece of metal. If you notice the part that I have off of this motor, it has the two holes. Now these two holes, I believe, I was missing a spring. There's a spring in both of these sides here, and there's a little B-beads that should sit on top of here, and then you would think that they would kind of notch into these holes as you went from side to side. But you can't get this on there at the right angle, proper angle, where it sits flat against it as if it's supposed to act that way, work that way. So I don't know if these are parts that were not on the original motor or what, but I'm not going to put these BBs in here. I'm not going to put this in. I'm just going to leave it like it is to start with, because that's the way it actually shows it here on the drawing for this motor. And we're going to give that a try, and then once I get it assembled, if that seems to work properly, we know we're okay. If not, I'm going to have to take it apart and try to figure something out. I've got the new shaft piece in, and now I'm assembling it. So the main thing, remember, is that this piece here, your pinion gear, has to go on so that that spring comes comes in between here, and then we're going to reassemble this cover piece. I took this off in reverse order. I should have left this piece on and disconnected it from the engine. So what I did is I went and took a complete piece off the engine. I'm going to assemble it back on here now. Then I'll come back and let you see what that looks like. Then I believe we'll be ready to set it back down, at least on the motor itself. The next thing we're going to do is try to get this cord spooled in here. You got to come down through this one hole, back up through the middle hole. After it goes through the middle hole, you come back out of the right hole here from the top, bend back down through, and the final protrusion is down here. Now, your knot is going to be in this section down here before we go back up and over. So we're going to tie a knot here in a second, leaving enough that we can go back up and over. And then this piece that comes out of here cannot protrude below this lip here. It can barely be hanging out. So I'm going to see if I can figure out a way to get this done, then I'll come back and show you the final result. There's a little bit of a diagram of how it's supposed to look. I've got it completed now. I'm just going to cut this off and probably burn this in just a little bit. I've got this sat back down in here now, and I've got to figure out, I'm pretty sure that this has got to come over the top of this rod here, but I've got to figure that piece out still, and then put the nut on that. I've got to pull the pin here so that I can spin this rope up on it, and then figure out how to actually get tension on that spring. So as I start developing that piece of it, I'll get back with you. Okay, so I've got the unit back in, and I apologize in a lot of this video. This took me several months. I kind of quit on it through the winter, but I've got my replacement part back in. And again, the part that I replaced is the plastic piece here, and it has the shaft. This is the top of the shaft. That's what I actually bought. That this was cracked, and then the spring, the end that was broke off the spring, actually the spring tip was broken, so it wasn't enough there to hold that little brass fitting on. And actually, because it's $80 for that darn thing, I said I'm going to try JB weld it and see how that works. So then I put it back in. And again, when you take this out, what you want to do is you want to remove this nut in order to take this off. Do not do like I did and remove this nut here, because this nut makes this come off, and then you've got a hot mess on your hands. So your best bet is to remove this nut. These two, the screw on this side, there's a screw on this other side that matches it. And then what I did again is I removed this eye bolt. I pulled the hose off of this. There's your fitting right here that unscrews with the 9/16. All that coming out should allow this mechanism then to be able to be wiggled out of here. Then putting it back in, just reverse order. But this rope, your pull rope, does go underneath this bar, and that's what helps keep it on the spindle here. Now, if you had tension somehow on your spring and your recoil is working, you're taking it apart for some other reason, this screw actually keeps tension on the pin that goes through here once you get it in. So if you were to undo this screw or pull that pin out, and that's basically pull that pin out, or remove this whole system, when you pull this off of here, when you pull this from here up, this whole mechanism, when you pull it out, the bottom of this spring, which has a groove in it, sits across a piece underneath here. So when you pull it off of that, it's gonna let that spring unwind. So that's gonna be something that happens you can go back, and I'll try to put a link below on how to actually tighten this up to get tension back on it when you reassemble it. But it's basically, it's reinstalled again. I'm gonna see if I can hold this camera enough and pull this enough. If you can see how that wants to engage there, that's because it's in neutral. Again, if you have this has a mechanism here for forward and reverse. In those positions, it will not allow this to jump up and engage this mechanism. So that piece is installed. Now then, next to the rest of my issues here, I'm gonna have to see if I once I get some fuel to this thing, to see if I'm gonna get any kind of fire out of it, see if it's actually gonna run or not. But that is basically the process to remove and repair the recoil system to get that piece done. And I will continue on once I get the fuel hooked up and start seeing if I have any fire and so forth.